You want to help someone you love who's just plain having a rough time, and they push back on good advice. Has this ever happened to you? If it has, stay tuned. This is G.H. Glade for Coaching ADD, and it's a common experience to want to jump in and help that person, to either give them advice, give them the benefit of the things you've experienced that have been helpful for you, but they push back. And you've heard it, they borderline from the illogical but kind of more reasonable to the borderline lunatic. Medications aren't natural. Yeah, we all can see through the illogic of this argument. Not everything that's natural is good for you. And then we have the lunatic fringe. My cousin's friend's testicles grew really swollen when they took the vaccine. Yeah, well, you're gonna hear the whole range of things. Facts don't work. Logic doesn't work. And I'll tell you why this is. People develop something called confirmation bias. What confirmation bias says is that you take in readily anything that supports your position, and you push away anything that disagrees with that. We see this in a political spectrum. We see it in all kinds of different ways. And we all have our confirmation biases. Realize that decisions, by and large, are not made on logic. They are made through a framework of emotion. And when we have some sort of belief stuck in our head, that evokes an emotion. It could be around taking meds for depression because you heard of somebody had a bad outcome, or any of a number of reasons are at the basis of developing this. The result is when you give that good advice, you get pushback. And so what you want to do is make a shift from giving advice to what's best described as empathetic attention. Chris Voss wrote a book called Never Split the Difference, and it's on negotiation techniques, and he's a former FBI international hostage negotiator. And I like what he has to say about calibrated questions. You've given this a lot of thought, and then let it rest. Let that gap take place, because people will fill in the gap. Tone is everything. You don't want to go, you've given this a lot of thought. More an upturn in your voice. You've given this a lot of thought. Let them do the talking. Sit on your own urge to jump in with this. Tell me more can be a way to further enhance that conversation. Fear is often a powerful motivator to this. I find when I have people come in and they're a little older and they have struggled with either depression or focus struggles for decades, and they've been resistant to medications, the first thing they said is, I would never have considered medications. But what happens is they reach a tipping point where their struggle exceeds their resistance. The things you can do to help them realize this tipping point are really getting those thoughts out and said in the world by finding out more information in an empathetic way. On the same token, you don't want to spare that person from the natural consequences of their behavior. No, I don't recommend, unless you have the rapport of going Dr. Phil on them and saying, how does that working out for you? That's a good way of pushing people away. Saying things like, I noticed that, and what I want in our relationship is this. What do you want in our relationship? That's a good way of saying, what I want is you to be fully present. I don't want you to be depressed and so pulled into yourself that we can't connect with one another. You should always avoid shoulds, always, and anything that really rings of that judgment, because that will get them to hold tighter to whatever that belief system is. The key to moving forward is actually backing off. And when you have that opportunity, open the door a little bit at the time. So this is G.H. Glade for Coaching ADD. If you've enjoyed this presentation, thump that like button, share it with others. And most of all, thank you for sharing this time with me. Until next week, we'll see you then.